I hope you're all sitting comfortably because I'm going to read you a little story. Now, I know that this week in school you've all been learning, or you're going to be learning, about under the sea. So I picked out a book called When Crabs Cross the Sand that I'd like to read to you. And it says, when crabs cross the sand, the Christmas Island crab migration. Did you know there was an island called the Christmas Island? Because I didn't. Now, there might be a few tricky words in this book, but do you know what I've spotted at the back? There's a glossary. So if there's any words that we get stuck with, we might be able to look in the glossary and we might be able to find it. And it's really helpful because the glossary is in alphabetical order, which will come in handy. So let's have a look. On Christmas Island, red crabs act like any other land crabs for most of the year. They live quietly in burrows dug into the forest floor. But once a year, millions of them migrate towards the Indian Ocean. That's a tricky word, migrate. Should we have a look and see if it's in the back? B-C-C-E-H-L, mate. No, migrate. Migrate is when things move from one area to another on a regular basis, usually to find food or produce young. So this means that the crabs are beginning to move. The whole island turns bright red. For several weeks, crabs climb across, over and down, anything in their path to reach the beach. Why is this journey so important to them? I think we'll find out. There's a little map there and you can see Australia, and then you can see this tiny, tiny island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and that is called Christmas Island. Drip, 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 drop. The sound of rain wakes up the red crab. She stretches and waves her claws. She hasn't moved for a long time. During the dry winter months, she slept, tucked safe inside her moist burrow. Can you see her hiding in here, keeping away from the cold weather? Now the rainy season begins. The red crab clears the opening at her burrow. Scuttle. Another red crab almost steps on her. Scuttle, scuttle. Dozens of red crabs skitter by. They are all walking in the same direction. They are all heading towards the beach. Now a burrow is a little hole underneath the ground. Can you think of anything else that lives in a burrow? A rabbit. The red crab feels the need to follow them. The beach is far away for an animal her size. The long, dangerous journey that will take more than 1 week. Along the way, she will climb over rocks and fallen trees. She stops to eat leaves and seeds. She crosses roads and just misses being hit by a car. It's quite a dangerous journey then, isn't it? But they're all on the move together, crawling through the grass. The red crab comes to a steep cliff, but it does not stop her. She climbs down quickly. What do you think a crab has that will help them grip when they're climbing? Thousands upon thousands of crabs crawl with her. The crabs have been walking for just over 1 week. The air outside the forest is drier than inside their burrows. They need to stay wet or they will die. Where is the beach? I wonder if you guys have ever been walking for 1 full week, because I don't think I have. She'll be very, very tired. There it is, the Indian Ocean. The red crab scurries in. Why do you think she's scurried and not gone really slow in? That's right, I think she needs some water. After a dip in the water, the red crab walks back up the beach. Quick as a blink, 2 claws grab her. It's a male crab. He arrived first to get his beach burrow ready for her. The two crabs crawl inside the burrow and mate. Once they've mated, the male goes back into the forest. The female stays behind them. She has important work to do. What do you think the word mate? They went into the burrow to mate. Let's flick back to our glossary because I remember seeing mate when we saw the word migrate. And it says, join together to produce a young. A mate is also the male or female partner of a pair of animals. So they've come together to make some babies. But then the male's left and it says that the female has a job to do. What might that job be? Do you think she might be doing the washing? Do you think she might be going to work? Do you think she might have something to make? Or do you think it's her job to look after her babies, her eggs? The red crab watches the moon. She watches the tide. And when the time is right, she leaves the sandy burrow and runs to the water. Raising her claws above her head, she does a little dance, the crab dance. She shakes her body up and down to drop thousands of eggs into the ocean. Hundreds of other female red crabs do the same thing. Wow. Thousands of eggs. Oh, you can see, look. Can you see all those eggs now floating in the ocean? And imagine if lots and lots and lots of other crabs have done the same, the ocean's going to be pretty full of these eggs. As soon as the red crab's eggs hit the water, two things happen. Firstly, her job is done. Tick. The red crab goes back into the forest the same way she came. Secondly, all the eggs hatch. Can you think of any other eggs that might hatch or that you might have seen hatch? I know that Miss Bucock brought in some eggs that had hatched. Can you remember what they were? I think she might have brought some tiny little chicks. Millions of tiny crab larvae swirl around in the water. Crab babies must hatch in seawater. This explains why the red crabs must make such long journeys. Ah, I understand now. So, can the crabs have their eggs on land? No. So they have to walk for a full week or even sometimes longer to try and get all the way to the water because that's the only place that their eggs would survive. Do you think it was a worth it journey? I do. Now it's said in there, millions of tiny crab larvae swirl around in the water. Now I think I know what that means, but let's just have a little tiny look. It's the stage in development between an egg and an adult. The word for more than one larva is larvae. So it's the tiny little eggs that are released by the mum crab that then hatch into a crab itself. So they're all here. They look a little bit like tadpoles, but there's one main difference that I can spot. What does a tadpole have that these don't? You guessed it, tails. The larvae grow in the ocean for about 1 month. Fish gobble up many of them. Oh no. The lucky larvae change into tiny baby crabs no bigger than a pencil eraser. Now that's an eraser. But if you imagine a pencil eraser on the top of your pencil, that's really, really tiny, isn't it? They leave the ocean by the millions and turn the whole water's edge red. You can see them. Now they've zoomed in on one there. So you can see that, but look at all of these tiny, tiny, tiny crabs on the beach. Can you remember why is there so many? Can you remember? Does one mummy crab just have one egg? That's right, they have millions. Oh, look at the difference now. What are they starting to grow? They're becoming a little bit bigger, and now they're getting their legs. The tiny red crabs scramble towards the forest. No one tells them where to go. They just know. So they haven't got a sat-nav and they haven't got a map, but they just know where they need to go to be safe. They will spend the next 4 or 5 years hiding between rocks and under leaves. Why do you think they might hide? Do you think they're playing a game? Do you think they're hiding from the weather? Or do you think they might be hiding from other animals because they might be an animal's prey? There might be some predators in that forest that would come and eat these little crabs. So they need to try and hide to survive. Then they too will take part in the amazing red crab migration. So when these crabs here all become adult crabs and they become older, they're going to make the same journey that their mums made all the way back to the ocean. They had to cross something. What did they have to cross? A road. And it was quite dangerous. And they have to travel for, was it 3 days? 4 days? You're right, it was a week. So they have to travel for 1 whole week. And then what did they do when they got to the beach? They met somebody. Who did they meet? That's right, they met the male crab. And they burrowed underground and they mated. And then the male crab went. He went away. But the female crab stayed because she had a job to do. And eventually she went back into the ocean and she dropped lots and lots and lots of tiny eggs. How many eggs did she drop? It was over 1 million, wasn't it? And can you remember what they were all called when there's a group of them? Begins with a L. It's not larva, but it's larvae. Well done. And then the mum's job's done and she can go home. And then all these tiny crabs eventually grew strong enough and brave enough to crawl out of the ocean, and they made their way without any help all the way back to the forest where they hid out for a little while so that they could become big and strong. And then they, one day, make that same journey all the way back to the ocean, and the whole process, the whole cycle goes over and over and over again. I wonder if you can think of any other cycles. It might be the cycle of a human. It might be the cycle of a chick. You might have looked at that in science. It might be the cycle of a rabbit. Because every living thing has a life cycle. So it then goes on when we've got at the back the Christmas Island crab fast facts. Now one of the facts here says their diet. So diet is what they eat, and it says they eat fallen leaves, seeds, fruit, snails, dead animals and human rubbish. Oh my goodness. Fallen leaves, seeds, fruit, snails, dead animals and human rubbish. I wonder if they eat the snail on a shell. They also eat animals, so they eat fruit and seeds and animals. Can anybody remember what that diet is called? Is it a carnivore? Is it a herbivore? Or is it an omnivore? I know that Miss Richardson's class were looking at that this year. If they eat seeds and animals. They also eat human rubbish, which is why it's so important that we put all our rubbish in the bin, because some of that rubbish can be really harmful and really dangerous. Now it says their lifespan there, and that's how long they live for, and it says roughly 20 to 30 years. Now if the word is roughly, does that mean they do live for 20 years or 30 years? Or does it kind of mean in between? It's a rough estimate, well done. And then it says the main threat. So the main threat to these animals is climate change. And the Christmas Island crabs will not migrate or mate if too little rain falls, putting them in danger of dying out. So these little crabs here, they need plenty of rain. So the climate change is a big worry for the future of these animals, because if our world continues to get hotter and hotter and hotter, then the rain will stop coming, and then we might eventually not have any of these crabs left, which is a little bit sad. And then it talks about natural predators. So we've got predators and we've got prey. I think you've done those words before as well. So a predator is something that attacks for food, and a prey is something that gets eaten. So the young are eaten by fish and other animals in the sea. But we learned that in the book, didn't we? Okay. We'll stop there. And well done for listening, I hope, so beautifully. And I will possibly see you next week for another story. Enjoy the rest of your day.